Hey everybody, we are live. My name is Jonathan Betzler, and I'm one of the hosts of No Name Cinema Society. We usually start out with graphics, but not tonight. And if you're wondering what classic we're going to talk about tonight, maybe this will give you a little hint. Maybe not.
Oh, you want the...
No?
Nope.
Well, I was born because in a cabin on a hill in Berkshire Hollow.
Who needs a summary?
We were poor, but we...
The song does it all. Anyway, so Coal Miner's Daughter is our, and don't worry, Davey, I just played two bars. Two bars, two lines. So Coal Miner's Daughter is our movie from 1980. And let me introduce my co-hosts who also don't have graphics. Our very own Patsy Cline, Jay Money.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm well.
You're well, good. And our very own Mini Pearl, Dave Joseph.
It's been a while since I saw this movie, but
See, now you know how I feel because that's me every time.
yeah.
And I'm going to explain that in just a second. Our full evening schedule, if you want to know it, you still have that little chalkboard? Here we go. Our full evening schedule. There you go. It started with Live by Night at 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock Pacific, 50/50. Our indie spotlight at 8:40. It seems 5:40 Pacific, and it's just a little after 9 now. We're starting Coal Miner's Daughter, now correctly spelled, and sort of, and it's 6 o'clock on the West Coast. And our sound off's coming up at the end of the evening, which is our freeform segment, where Davey's going to have a diatribe. I'm going to have a top 5 musical biopics based on our discussion of this film. I'm going to revisit a film from 1990 and announce some goings-on about a town here in New York City. So sound off's going to be big. It's going to be big tonight, and hopefully we'll start it on time. All right. So what's happening next? Probably a summary of some kind. Oh, trivia. You ready for the trivia tidbit?
Bam.
All right. Where is it?
I mean, where is it? It's right here. Do you not see me?
We couldn't for a second, but you're back now. You're back in all your glory. All right. So yeah, the trivia tidbit of the evening. On the show, I said it was a British documentary filmmaker takes on a country music legend. Of course, the British documentary filmmaker is Michael Apted, who did the 7 Up series, 7 Up, 14 Up. Not about the soda 7 Up, about, do you guys know the 7 Up series?
Yep. Davey Joe.
Love it. No, I've never seen it.
Okay. Well, 7 Up, 14 Up, and I think 56 Up is the most recent one.
Yeah.
So he did that, but he did this country music biopic, of course, about country music star Loretta Lynn. On Facebook, and I had the picture of this too. I really wanted to show this photo of the actual estate. The trivia question on Facebook was that the subject of our classic recreated the sets from the film on her own estate and uses them as a tourist attraction. Did you know that, Davey Joe?
That's wild.
So yeah, Loretta Lynn recreated Butcher's Holler, or Hollow, on her estate, so people can pay her and come see it. So
this is what it sort of looks like.
It's nothing what it looks like, but
pretty close. It's not an exact replica.
It's not drawn to scale.
There we go. This will help kind of like control. Yeah.
That's it. Score. Anyway. All right, so I'm going to start the film. Loretta is the eldest daughter of a coal miner in Butcher's Holler, or Butcher's Hollow, depending on who you're talking to. It's in Kentucky, whereas a 15-year-old girl, she's courted by a 22-year-old war veteran named Doolittle Lynn, known throughout the film as Do. After she marries Do at that ripe young age, he persuades her to sing more, knowing she was good, but not knowing she was that good. Loretta becomes a success, which puts a lot of strain on her and her relationship with her husband. How do you guys feel about that summary?
Yeah, that worked out pretty well.
Oh, Is that Two-Face?
Yes, that is Two-Face and Loretta Lynn locked together forever.
You know, so many people have not seen the 1995 Batman Returns that reference might be lost on most of our audience.
Oh, you think so? Is our fans are all way too young for that reference?
I think our fans are younger than us anyway, right, Davey?
Well, it's not hard to be.
Okay. He doesn't say much, but when he does,
Yeah.
it's basically just that.
Classic Davey.
Classic Davey. Now, this screening, this particular show is sort of a first for us. Not only do we not have graphics anymore, but I screened this film in New York on November 22nd, and it's momentous because, ladies and gentlemen, and there's a vlog of this to prove it, all three of us were present. It's the only time that all three of us have been in the same room in about 10 years, maybe a little less, maybe like 8 years. So we were all in the same room. We watched this together, and that's kind of a big deal. And what's noteworthy about that is we had a discussion afterwards with the group, and I re-listened to it for prepping for tonight, and it's basically the show. Like, I feel like we are basically redoing what we've already done. I could have just posted that discussion, although there was some uncomfortable talk about.
There wouldn't be any graphics if you did that, JB. So.
Right. What would we do without graphics? I mean, I would have to add out some of the uncomfortable discussions about rape and M&Ms. But anyway, you guys probably don't remember that.
As I recall.
Yeah.
I remember M&Ms.
Well, that should tell you
Probably
where
for the best.
it was at the time.
All right. So, I mean, I know what you guys think for the most part. I'm curious to see if what you think now matches what you said on the night. But, Davey, your opening thoughts are first.
You know, I remember liking the movie, but also kind of being uncomfortable with sort of the misogyny. I guess would be the only way to really say it. Especially early in the film.
You did not mention that on the night, but that's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure you were going to follow it up, but it looks like you're not. So, Jay Money, opening thoughts.
I mean, you know, now we've had a little bit of time to let it settle in. I don't remember if I'm going to match up, but I guess I feel like it was an okay film. It suffered from the same problems I have with a lot of biopics, in that I think it tried to cover way too much ground, and it kind of lost out because of that. But some of the performances rose and helped carry it through.
Yeah, so. And for me, that's the key thing is the performances to me. I was impressed with the performances, and my major quibble is the same as Jay Money, is the script adaptation for the same reason that we talked about with Live by Night. Sprawl and covering too much ground. And for what it's worth, David Joe, on the night, you harped on that a lot too. So there was agreement between all three of us as far as that particular subject was concerned.
Yeah, I think that's I'll go with that too. But it didn't make me dislike the film straight up.
I mean, like, I would say I feel pretty confident throughout I feel like with one person I think really, really liked the film a lot. But I mean, for everyone else, I feel like we all agreed it was a good film, but not a great film. And we all agreed why. I mean, that's me summarizing it up, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but that's my assessment having re-listened to it. And since we normally like to start with a positive, then we don't normally start with performances, but when it comes to this movie, I think it's the overarching positive. And so let's jump right into the Oscar winner, Sissy Spacek. Gentlemen, what's any superlatives you'd like to throw out there for Sissy Spacek?
Yeah, I mean, watching her go through her entire arc in this film, you know, as sort of rags to riches lady, but I mean, even worse than that, as like the most poverty-stricken person in general to a major superstar. She handles it really well. I mean, she's covering a large amount of time, so she's covering a wide range in age. She's covering, I think, 13 to like 50-something, perhaps, in her age, which is pretty insane. And she has a really measurable change in the way that she acts throughout the entire movie. So I feel like, and overall, you know, she really does show progress, and she shows her character going through a lot of different things. And watching her go through it is the reason to watch this. I mean, I really do believe that she's the one that kind of carries this film.
David Joe.
Yeah, you know, and I think she does a great job. She plays different ages believably, and she also she handles the music. handles the music, which I think is got to be very, very difficult. It's definitely a great performance.
That we spent a lot of time talking about that in November 22nd is the singing, and how, like, after listening to Loretta Lynn and listening to Sissy Spacek, we realized like how much she does not sound like Loretta Lynn in real life and how much she does sound like Loretta Lynn in the movie, both in terms of singing voice and accent. And she worked really, really hard on that, and it shows, I think.
Yeah, no.
The more so yeah, it's a pretty complete transformative performance. The more controversial and like actually the first thing anybody wanted to talk about was Tommy Lee Jones. Like there was major disagreement in the room about TLJ, and different reasons why. It was among the more interesting things that we talked about. So before I recap that, what do you guys remember about Tommy Lee Jones? Davey, you first.
I remember thinking maybe it was good, but it was maybe a little. I enjoyed it, but maybe a little caricature-y. He definitely is kind of over the top.
Caricature was
like it.
Over the top were phrases used that night, not by you. So either you're stealing or you're in agreement.
Let's go with little column A, little column B.
J Money, TLJ.
Yeah, I think at the time I said that I felt like he always plays the same guy, basically, and I still feel that way. I feel like this is a Tommy Lee Jones performance, and it's iconic in the sense that he's the one doing it because he always is the same kind of level of confidence. He always has the same sort of smirk. You know, whether or not it worked for this movie, it worked fine in this movie, but it's fine in this movie. It's not necessarily else. It's not necessarily else.
That is exactly what you said.
Is it exactly what I said?
That's exactly what you said. So you are more consistent than you give yourself credit for. I would say, I mean, one person thought he was awesome, and I'm sort of in the middle in the sense that I would argue that, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The caricature thing I don't know about. I don't know if that feels a little strong in the other direction as my battery starts to die, so I'm just going to plug it in. I feel like it's the most complicated character in the movie. Because I mean, like his character wavers greatly in many different ways, because I mean, like I feel like Loretta has, like, you know, a straight arc up script wise, but I mean, I feel like he's up and down in a lot of ways that makes sense in the story, and he's holding on to these sort of old school masculine ideals, and he's got which is sometimes in conflict with his love for Loretta, and I do believe he actually loves Loretta, and at the same time, when she's successful, he feels emasculated, but he also, like, contributed to her success, so there's like this conflict there, and then like adjusting into his role as caretaker as she starts to struggle with certain things. So I feel like there's a lot of layers to what he's going in there, and I feel like he doesn't always hit every moment the way she does, but I feel like I almost feel like he's got a lot more going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that sense, because I feel like you're seeing him also react to what she's doing, and as much as, like, she's the star, he's always on the sidelines and he has to react to it. But because of that, I don't really see him going through a process. I just see him, like, picking up at certain points in the storyline and being in the background, and then his attitude changes based on what she's doing.
Right, and he was not helped by our main issue with the film, which was the script, because the script did not offer transitions for him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Davey?
Yeah, no, I think that's wow, we're getting a serious setup. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it maybe he was kind of handicapped by the script in the sense that well, the movie's not about him, so it's tough. It's kind of tricky from a writing standpoint to make that work.
I mean, I do think that, though, I mean, in all the sprawl, I mean, like, the focus of the film, for the most part, and they dabbled in other things, and this is one of our issues with the script, which we'll get to momentarily. They dabbled in other things, but the main thrust was their relationship, like, and that's why the penultimate scene on that hill where they talk about the house, that's why it was there, because I think that's the through line. It's supposed to be about the two of them, I think, and that's maybe where it falters in that it goes on these sort of sidelines as far as she's concerned. Before we get to the script, I want to ask you about some of these supporting performances that we talked about. We talked about a little about Levon Helm and Beverly D'Angelo. You guys have any thoughts on these guys before we get to the screenplay?
Yeah, Beverly D'Angelo was kind of a revelation in this film. I mean, she's come up a lot for us recently. But
well, I mean, like our audience doesn't know that. I mean, we will have neither is Davy Joe, but we will have another Beverly D'Angelo film in April or May or so.
Yeah, but I had no idea that she had such a range in terms of her actual performance of abilities, and she is fantastic in this film because of that. She's fantastic as a singer. She's fantastic.
Yeah, great singer. Better than well, vocal range anyway, better than Sissy Spacek, but also that stands to reason because Patsy Cline had a better vocal than Loretta Lynn. Davy Joe.
Yeah, she was amazing. She was absolutely amazing.
What about Levon? The dad.
The dad. Yeah. He was fine. I don't remember it really well, but I remember what's her face being way better, and remembering her from Mr. Mom, and thinking, wow, she can sing.
Beverly D'Angelo is not in Mr. Mom.
I think she is. Isn't she the one that trying to break up? All right, I'm looking that up.
That's Ann Gillian. Ann Gillian tries to break them up.
Really? Do they like look similar?
Beverly D'Angelo was in Vacation.
Of course she was.
Yeah.
Levon Helm didn't have a lot to work with, but he was a striking character in this film. And
I mean, it's great casting, I think. I think it was totally appropriate. For those music fans that you don't know, Levon Helm is probably best known as the drummer for the band called The Band.
The Band.
Why was he in this film?
I mean, because I think he had the feel. Like, I feel like, because, I mean, like, so much of Loretta Lynn's canon deals with her father. I mean, she's got, like, I think 3 to 4 songs. I mean, Coal Miner's Daughter being the obvious. And I think she has another song, like, no guy matches up to my daddy, and, like, things like that. Like, this is an iconic character in country music history, in a way, like, in the sense that there's all these famous songs about him. And I feel like Levon, his face and his demeanor match the portrait that the songs paint.
Yeah, it certainly did, and I wouldn't necessarily have expected that. Is it just that? I mean, did he pitch to be in this movie? Was he excited?
No. Apted hunted him down. And one of the more fun videos that you'll find online is Sissy Spacek doing a concert of Loretta Lynn songs around the promotion of the movie with Levon Helm playing drums. And that's kind of cute and fun.
Yeah.
So, Davy Joe, you're still looking at Mr. Mom, aren't you?
Damn it, you're right, but they do look very similar.
But I mean, are you? I mean, like, J Money, you've seen me do these trivia contests. Am I gonna be wrong? I'm not gonna be wrong on these things.
No. JB is Rain Man when it comes to this stuff. He's never gonna be wrong with this stuff.
Let me tell you something, JB. It is theoretically possible for you to be wrong. I just.
Well, I acknowledge the theoretical possibility. All right, so let's start talking about the screenplay and the sprawl. So here's the issue with the screenplay that came up, and I agree with all these things. Is in the thing about a biopic, they try to cover her rise to fame, their fans, the way her fans obsessed with her, painkiller addiction, the relationship with Dew, at one point raising children, but then her children disappear. And the other thing that Davey mentioned during the movie is, and another person mentioned, like, is the transition to become an artist. Like, so she gets a good guitar, and within a scene or two, she's composed her first amazing hit song. So that, learning to be a great artist, that process is sort of glossed over. And so nothing feels impactful. It's just sort of told to us instead of us feeling it. And everything feels, the word I used that night is diluted. Do you guys want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I think that, I would chalk that up again to how much ground they were trying to cover, because there is a great story here, and because it's fun to watch in a sense. It's fun to watch her go through all the motions, especially since you know where it's going to go. You know to a certain degree that she's going to become a massive. But at the same time, when you're done with it, you feel like nothing was earned. You don't feel like you really got a chance to actually experience the highs and lows the way they should have been, because it was just kind of it was presented for you. It wasn't really explained, and I feel like a little cheated by the end of it.
Yeah, no, and for the most part, I mean, with a few exceptions that I'll address perhaps in my top 5, but the best biopics take a section and deal with that section of a life. And I feel like there could have been a separate movie about the painkiller addiction. I mean, Nashville, we all agree Nashville did the same. I mean, we all know that Barbara Jean is Loretta Lynn, so it's the same story, just much better. And but I mean, so the painkiller addiction, the like it could have been about the fan obsession. It could have been just about the rags to riches. The movie could have ended about when she had her first hit record, because we know the rest of the story is the story that we know, quite frankly.
Yeah.
There's arguments for all those things. And I mean, like, biopic after biopic suffers by trying to cover too much ground. Happens all the time. Chaplin is an example. Hoffa is another one that tries to cover too much. And I mean, Chaplin has so many great moments, directed by Richard Attenborough, that it's disappointing, because at the whole, like, you want more of the good moments, and then there's all these other moments in between that are annoying because they're sort of shoehorned in there, and that's true of this movie as well.
Yep. I mean, everybody's trying to assemble these different parts and make them into a cohesive narrative, and it just never really lives up to any kind of potential. It's always too watered down. It's always too much ground. Too much happens over too long of a period of time, and nothing really kind of sinks in and climaxes. And it just leaves you a little bit limp, I guess, is what I would say.
Climaxing and then limp? Did you do that on purpose?
Yes.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
No.
And so he's not a Seth Rogen type, everybody, just so you know.
You wrote that. You came. No, please.
All right, so I have a few.
Just rounding back to one thing you just said, I kind of actually appreciate Nashville a little bit more after having seen this. Now that I got the direct reference in Nashville to what was happening with
I do
Loretta
too.
Lynn,
I do too.
I actually kind of like really love that scene in Nashville even more now, because I didn't realize there was a real direct, kind of connection.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of direction, that's a good segue to, I do want to talk about Michael Apted's choices here, because I do think it was interesting. Michael Apted coming from a documentary background, as you know, and I feel like he took some of that training and applied it to this film, either intentionally or subconsciously. I think it had, for me, good things and bad things. One thing is, potentially a good thing is, it's fairly unobtrusive, which allowed a lot of freedom for the actors. And one thing that seemed to confuse Jay Money in our discussion on the 22nd in November was that he was saying that, was I suggesting that Apted wasn't blocking the scenes? And I was saying, no, I think he was letting the actors do what they feel like they would normally do, and then using the camera to just capture it. And maybe like he wants them to stop at a certain point. Like, certainly you need them in the light, or like maybe there's a better background than others. Like, he might give them some parameters within to work between. But I mean, it did feel like, similar to 50-50, there was a certain amount of freedom that they had there, that they could work within, and I think that helps performances. On the bad side, I feel like there's some things that were missed, because there a lack of close-ups. Especially for a 1980 film where close-ups were a little more common. He was staying wide and medium more often than not, and I feel like there were some moments that we missed as a result. Another example is, there's a really bad street fight scene, if you recall, it was just poorly executed and poorly blocked. So that's my pitch about the direction, the good and the bad. How do you guys feel about that, and did you notice anything else?
David Joe, why don't you run with this one?
Yeah, you bet. I didn't notice anything. I may have at the time. That's the stuff that that sticks out to me. The fight was awful. What was the fight being awful?
So otherwise, you basically agree with what I was saying. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it.
I'm glad I'm here for something. Jake, honey?
I think that there was. I think that the way that he used environment to showcase kind of her different stages in life actually worked out very well. I mean, you're talking about a lack of close-ups, for instance, and you're talking about the way that things are blocked in sort of an open-handed way. And yes, I totally understand that, and I agree that it felt organic because of that to some degree, and maybe you missed out on certain more refined qualities because of that. But I would say that her environment really does play a large part in the way that you feel about her as a character, and that came across.
At least in the beginning.
Well, yeah, but even all the way to the end, because I mean, she ends up in this kind of compound that feels like a little bit weird and foreign, and because it also feels a little contrived. That kind of makes.
I like the bus set. The bus thing was interesting.
And the bus stuff, yeah.
All right, so one last thing I want to talk about before we get to the brackets. Oh, how are we going to do the brackets?
Oh good question. Oh, let me try to do something.
Oh,
yeah.
God, this is upsetting. Anyway, so I reached out to somebody that was at the screening last night. We were sort of chatting, and I was trying to come up with, like, because we always talk about like the themes of the movie, and this one was a little harder. Like, I was having a hard time coming up with themes, and I asked her about it, and we sort of discussed it a little bit, and none of us felt really good about the themes that we were coming up with, but it was the best that we came up with. Do you guys, what would you guys say are the themes of this movie? Davey, he's writing, so you first.
I mean, I think it's the trappings of fame, but that only really speaks to part of the movie.
Yeah, the first one I wrote down was the price for success, and that was there, and there's our timer, so we're very close to finishing, so that's good. At least this is part of it. The other one that came up, and sort of a tertiary way, is feminism, and you talked about misogyny, and I say the feminism only because she finds a voice, both literally and figuratively, in the way that she eventually stands up to do, and grows up beyond where she maybe would have if she'd stayed in Butcher's Hollow. So there's this touch, and because the script is so sprawling, it doesn't really hammer any of these home. But I feel like the feminism is there, especially in the relationship with Patsy Cline.
Yeah, I think that the stuff that kind of bothered me was that early on in their marriage, he really manhandles her, and it's almost sympathetic. It's portrayed in sympathetic to him kind of way, and it's I'm not
I think it's only because you identified with that moment yourself.
Well, Davey Joe got married at a very early age, and he unfortunately.
Yeah.
David Joe, by the way, for the audience, I forgot to mention this earlier. He's in New York. All three of us in New York. I'm in Astoria, Brooklyn, and you're downtown Manhattan. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me pick up on what David Joe was saying a little bit, because I also was bothered by some of this, what we're talking about, and I think that one of the reasons I was bothered because I expected there to be a different kind of outcome to the relationship between her and Dew. And JB, to your point, they talk about how Dew kind of comes along and they sort of progress as a couple. And by the end of it, I am convinced that they belong together because they figured out how to work around each other. But Dew is not really painted to be in the best portrait to begin with, and you kind of are expecting some sort of comeuppance or at least some sort of understanding about how Loretta Lynn / Lucy Spacek should have been treated better. And by the end of the movie, you're sort of like, well, she got treated like terribly for a long period of time, but it's okay because they sort of are fine now. I don't know if that really gels.
Well, I mean, but that's what I think is fascinating about it, because that's what happened. You know what I mean? Like that, and
that's
the situation.
In terms of the movie, but I don't know.
But how do you deviate from that when you're? I mean, especially with Loretta being alive, like I don't know. I mean, and Loretta to this day is very she says all those things happen, but she, Dew was the best thing that happened to her. They're great partners, and I mean, I think the stupidest thing is they were so dumb young. You know what I mean? Or at least she was.
Yes. Well, I think that's the thing. I think that if this movie was made now, there might be a little bit more equal weight given to the fact that they're both really dumb. They're just really, really naive people, and they don't really know how to focus and work in the world. Whereas the movie.
That was fairly clear to me. Do you think it was fairly?
I feel like Dew was the one that always had the command and control, and they kind of celebrated.
But I thought that was false. When you say things like, I mean, like, first of all, he's like somewhat running moonshine maybe, and then he's like talking a big game, but then he's like, so I'm not going to work in a coal mine. Then you cut to he's working in a coal mine. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but
like he was constantly undercut. You know, that braggadocio.
yes, but then they end up giving him all credit for basically where she ends up.
Well, I mean,
I don't know all of it.
he gets a, you know, like he is a catalyst there, a major catalyst. His reasons might have been self-serving, but he was a major catalyst there.
Well, I guess what my point would be, like, since they don't actually show her struggling to determine her art, to like become an artist, it's all about him getting her a guitar and then her suddenly being like an artist. So it doesn't really seem like a fair shake, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you know, like that's a script or editor director issue in the sense they cut out a chunk where she, like, they have a little sequence where she's learning to play the guitar. She gets better and better in like a 4-scene sequence that feels patched together and you know, they might as well have had a voiceover. It was like one step above voiceover saying, and she got better. Because it was
great.
Yeah, it was just as it had the same amount of lack of impact, if that's the sentence. Davey, before I get to the bracket, do you want to add to what J Money just said, or do you want to tell him to F off?
F off.
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely. We got a title graphic too. Classic Movie Showdown is here now, and this is kind of exciting. So I believe this is the Best Actress bracket. So I'm going to cut to you in a second, J Money. So it's the Best Actress bracket, and I believe Coal Miner Daughter is a 10 seed, which means Davy Joe will go against what number in the first round?
7.
7 seed. So Coal Miner's Daughter is a 10 seed. The Best Actress bracket goes up against 7 seed. Throw it up. Roman Holiday. So there it is. And Roman Holiday was a film that we discussed the last time I was in this room. We did a show in this room. It was last January, so it's been a full year for us since we discussed Roman Holiday. And so you guys, among others, were eligible to vote for that film at that screening. So it's interesting, and it's interesting how it turned out in that regard. Let's see who gets to reveal their vote first. And Roman Holiday, for those of you who don't know, is a 1953 film with Audrey Hepburn. She won the Best Actress Oscar for that. It was her first film, actually. So I forgot to see who goes first. It's Davey. Davey.
Let's hope I give the same answer. I think that Roman Holiday is a better movie, but I think that you could say that Sissy Spacek's performance is better. But I'd vote for Roman Holiday as the better film.
You did not give the same answer.
I knew that was going to happen.
I don't even know what to do with that. So J Money.
Roman Holiday.
Oh, there you go, Roman Holiday. That's not your vote, though.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just depicting Roman Holiday. So
no, that is the scooter scene from Roman Holiday as depicted by J Money's drawings, ladies and gentlemen.
Coliseum. That's the Coliseum right there, just so we're all clear.
That looks pretty phallic, actually, in nature. I don't know about that.
Well, that's exactly what the movie's about, isn't
it? All right. So your vote, J Money, if you can get us back on track after.
My vote mirrors exactly what I like Roman Holiday better the movie. I think the performance is better in terms of basics performance.
And this is important because if these guys turn the tide of the vote at that screening, because it would have ended differently. It was a one vote thing. So if Davey had voted for Roman Holiday would have won. But he didn't, at least in the course of the night. And I predicted that he would, and the other person would have voted for Coal Miner's Daughter, but another person, and it flipped, and you wound up voting for Coal Miner's Daughter. Do you remember your justification for that?
Me or?
You, Davey, yeah.
Oh God, no. I don't remember. I assume it's the performance. I mean, that's the bracket, so I mean, maybe it makes sense to go on the performance.
But I mean, like each individual person can decide their criteria. If they want to say it's about the movie, or they want to say it's about the bracket. At that night, the performance, and that night you said it was the performance.
It is a better performance than Audrey Hepburn's performance. I don't think there's that.
And I disagree with that. I mean, I think Audrey Hepburn is perfect in Roman Holiday. And I if I had a vote, I would have voted for Roman Holiday as I stipulated that night. So it would have, but you guys turn the tide. So Coal Miner's Daughter actually won as a result. There it is. And it was the first time you guys actually swung a vote. Like it's interesting that it had it not been for you guys, Roman Holiday would have won. And interestingly, also, if Davie was not drunk, he would have voted for Roman Holiday. So it's very interesting. That's how close it was, I guess. The
brackets can suck it. We have influence, and it should be known. Feel our power. Feel our power.
I don't know how to respond to that, but I will say that I'm going to wrap things up now, and we'll get back on track with the sound off. We're going to have a sound off in about 20 minutes, and we're going to have a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to do a top 5. I'm going to revisit a 1990 movie because it's our last opportunity to do that. And what else am I doing? Davey's going to have a diatribe. And what else? I'm going to events around town, our new Society Buzz section, which J Money spent a lot of time to create a new graphic for today that we're not going to use.
Did not happen.
You spent a lot of time to create a new graphic today. So anyway, so y'all know about our year review coming up. As you can see, J Money's little slide there. That's coming up on the 23rd of February, which is kind of exciting. So we're going to have our top 10 films of 2016, an Oscar preview because the Oscar nominations will be out by then, and what the thing that you classic people will be interested in is we're going to look at all the films from 1966. We're going to do a full hour on the 1966 in review, 50 years ago. We're going to look at the Oscar races that year. We've already watched a number. I've already watched a number of films. J Money, I've showed J Money at least one film from 1966, and I believe Davey, you watched your first 66 film today.
I did.
All right, so we're cracking them down. We're going to be watching the big films from '66 and discussing that year as well, revisiting 50 years ago. And I hope you classic fans will tune in for that. Our last year we did 25 years, and we did a 1990 interview, and that was a really successful show, and I think a really fun show, even though Davey didn't participate as much. Don't you guys think?
Yes, it was excellent.
It was a blast.
And for those of you who know the show, know that if J Money says it's excellent, then that's saying something. So anyway, so that's Coal Miner's Daughter. That's our discussion. It moves on in the brackets, the Best Actress bracket, and Roman Holiday is eliminated for this bracket, but we'll see if it does well in any other ones. All right, so that's it for this one. We tune in 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific for our freeform segment and the sound off. In the meantime, we'll see you then.